Hey, welcome back to the channel. I am really glad you're here because today I want to talk about how to get what you want. Sounds like a pretty heavy lift, but it's really about how to realize your dreams and make the most out of life. For us, it was to buy this old farmhouse on 33 acres. But I think that the process that we went through can really apply to anything you want to achieve in life. So a little backstory here. A year ago, Ann and I sold our family home. The house that I grew up in, the house that my parents built 65 years ago on land that my great-grandparents bought 100 years ago. So it was not an easy decision. But we sold that property so that we could buy this property. So we downsized our house and we upsized our land. But this was a dream that Ann and I shared mutually. I grew up playing on the 45-acre farm behind our house. I loved every minute of it. And I knew for my entire life, this is what I want. I could feel it. I just loved it. And Ann grew up more, not urban, but suburban. And when she was a teenager, she told her parents that she wanted to live off the land. Now, of course, this was the 70s and kind of a hippie thing to say, but her parents were from Philadelphia. They didn't understand that. And they were more about education. They wanted to see her secure in life. But that desire never left her. She always felt it. From the time we were married, we talked about it all the time. So we were lucky that we both shared that vision, that dream, that we just really love the land. So here we are, really in the last quarter of our lives, but we made it. We did it. And maybe you can do it sooner, or maybe you're like us and you're ready to make a change at this point in your life. So I want to share with you what we did to get here, and I hope you find it helpful. Now, what I want to share with you today is not a formula that we followed from beginning to end. It's really more about, now that I'm at this point, I looked back at the path that we followed, and I'm trying to lay it out for you, because I'm not exactly an organized person. So I'm thinking if you're more organized than me, if you're smarter than me, this might help you in some way. But again, in hindsight, I looked back and I could see a very methodical path that we followed. And had I known that, maybe I could have followed that path more accurately. But anyway, here's the first thing. And to me, this is the most important thing in life, hands down, regardless of whether you're talking about buying your dream property or any of those other things we talked about. This to me is most important, and that is to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, what do I really want? And that's difficult because we tend to listen to outside voices. We've got society, family history, all those things that make us think, well, that's what I should do. You know, like logically, I should go to law school, or I should go to trade school because my grandfather did that, it worked well for him. I should join the military because that's where my parents were, or any of those things. And there's nothing wrong with any of that if that's what you feel inside. But a lot of times we don't feel it. You know, we're just thinking, I should do that because it just makes sense. And that can work out fine, but not always. So for me, the most important thing is to be honest with yourself, which is very difficult because not only does it, again, apply to your career or where you live, it applies to who you want to be as a person. So let's get back to our story, our dream, which was to own a farm. Something I knew my entire life, but I did little other than to dream about it, than to just kind of wish it would happen. But a couple years ago is when I got really honest with myself. I started to ask those questions. What do you really want? And I found my truth. My truth was I really wanted to own land. I knew it all along, but I started to say it out loud. I said to Ann, if I reach the end of my life and I never had the opportunity to own land, I'll be sad. If I'm lying there and I know that I'm at the end, I'll say, I never achieved that dream. I never realized that dream. And although I have no regrets in life at all. There's not a single time or a single day that I would go back to. To me, every day is better than the day before, and I wouldn't go back one bit. I'm always trying to look forward. But I know enough about myself that I knew that I would be sad at the end of my life if I hadn't achieved that one dream that was burning inside of me. So about 10 years ago, I started to get really serious about this, and I thought, how can I make this happen? And luckily for me, Anne, I knew, was on board with these thoughts, because fortunately, she's the dreamer. She's the one that will find a room full of manure and know that there's a pony in there somewhere. So I had that going for me, which is lucky, because when you're in a relationship or when you're married, you need to consider the other person. But anyway, I started to think about, how can I make this happen? The problem was, I wasn't ready to give up what I had. I was trying to think of ways that I could have it all. And for most of us, that's not realistic thinking. Aside from that, I can tell you what I started to do. And this is still part of part 2, which is after realizing your dream, this is actively pursuing your truth. So here's what I did. So I had this brilliant idea, because again, I wanted to have it all. So I started to write to adjacent property owners. We were fortunate that there was a 45-acre farm on one side of our property, a 50-acre farm, a small parcel. So I reached out and I wrote to these landowners, and I said, hey, you know, we live right here. We're looking to expand our property. Would you be willing to subdivide a few acres and sell it to us? Or do you want to sell your parcel? There was like a 2-acre parcel next to us. I got no reply. So basically that means no thank you. The farm that I grew up playing on, that went for sale about 6 times over the past 30 years, but the timing was just never right. The cost was too much, and it just couldn't happen, even though that was my dream. But my first step was to write these letters. And again, in my mind, I thought, wow, I can have it all. I can keep the property I have and get more land. Like, brilliant. Didn't work out. That could work out for you, though. If you have adjacent property, don't be afraid to ask the landowner if they would sell it to you or subdivide to expand your property. Didn't work out for me. But that was the first step that kind of got me motivated. From that point, I started to look at other properties in the community. I love where we live. I didn't want to move away from where we live. I had a good paying job that required me to stay in the state and in the area. So I was set on where I wanted to be. But I started to look around at other properties in the area. And I use an app on my phone called Regrid. There are other ones out there. I think X-Hunt does the same thing. But basically, it's a map like Google Maps. You can see a property, you can click on it. It'll give you information like the number of acres. You can see the block and the lot number. Many times it'll show you the owner's name and address, because it's lifted from county or state tax maps or local tax maps. So I started to write to landowners, and a very brief letter introducing myself, that I've lived here my entire life. My wife and I, you know, we would like to own more land. Do you have any interest in selling your property? And I did that. I wrote about 15 letters over the past several years. And we actually got about four positive responses. And we probably missed out on some opportunities because, again, I wasn't ready to do the work. I was still trying to think of a way that I could keep what I have and get something else. And as unrealistic as that was, I wasn't ready to let go. So that brings me to part 3, which is to be ready to take action. You've already identified your dream, your truth. You were honest with yourself. You know what you want. Now you're actively pursuing your truth. But now you have to be ready to take action, which I wasn't. This is where you really want to kind of have a plan. And I didn't really have a plan. I just was kind of seeing if I could make this happen. I don't know. It's sort of like if you go fishing and somebody says, well, what are you going to do when you catch the fish? Do you know how to scale a fish? Do you know how to cook a fish? No, I just wanted to go fishing. I just wanted to try it. But you got to think about what's going to happen when you catch that fish. You got to be prepared for it. So in my mind, I've always thought that life, success is a combination of luck, effort, and timing. And you need a combination of at least two of those things. So you could get lucky, and in our case, you know, somebody could have given us a farm. Wouldn't that be great? That's kind of what I was hoping for deep down inside, but that's not realistic. And then you can put forth effort, and you can push and push and push, but you could also get burned out. And you could also, you know, when you push, it's not always good. So you have to kind of work with that. And then there's timing. And I think you need, you know, if you put forth effort and the timing is right, it'll come together. It's kind of what happened for us, is we did put forth the effort, and we were lucky, and the timing was right. So I like to think of it this way: to be focused but not fixated, to be patient but not lazy, and to be positive but realistic. So fast forward to 2022 and this particular property. I had driven by this house literally thousands of times. Having grown up here, and this road is right around the corner from where we lived, I would use this road to go to work. So sometimes passing this house twice a day, 4 times a day, for 50 years. And one day I just happened to look at the tax map. I saw that there was a big parcel of land behind the old farmhouse, and I thought, okay, let's write a letter, see what happens. Now, I was still of the mindset that I could have it all. I don't know why. I was still thinking that way. But anyway, I wrote this letter. I sent it off just like all the letters before. And we got a very nice email response saying, we received your letter and we'd like to talk to you. Now, they said we're looking at selling the property. And again, none of these properties were for sale. I don't think I mentioned that before. But part of this whole premise of mine is don't look at properties that are for sale. Look at properties that are not for sale, because people can sometimes be overwhelmed with listing their house where they might be willing to sell privately. Anyway, so they said, we are going to sell the farm. We're not ready yet because the place had fallen into disrepair a little bit, and they loved this place and they wanted it to be presentable. Now in my mind, I'm thinking, disrepair? Awesome. That sounds like something we could afford. So that didn't scare me at all. We were very excited to think this could be a possibility. So we kept the communication going for several months before we even met in person or saw the property in person. But we formed this friendship, and it has become a literal friendship. In fact, they were just over here yesterday, and it was great to visit with them. But we formed this friendship. We got to know each other, and you know, they knew they wanted to sell the farm, but they also knew they didn't want to see the property parceled or subdivided. They didn't want to see the old farmhouse torn down and have a McMansion built on the property. You know, this was their dream of 40 years that they put blood, sweat, and tears back here. And, you know, you could see all the things that they had dreamed about and that they had done. And again, unfortunately, time had taken its toll, and the property was a bit overwhelming, and it needed attention. But through our conversations, they came to know us and to realize that we shared their vision very much so. That we said, no, we're not going to subdivide that property. We want to keep it whole. We love the old farmhouse, even though it's a far cry from the modern rancher that we came from, but it was all pretty exciting. And what happened was luck, effort, and timing all came together for us. And the beauty of this was I started to realize, okay, we're going to have to sell our house. That's the only way we can do this, is if we sell our house. But they, the sellers, understood. They understood financial struggles. They understood that we needed time to sell our house. They needed time to empty this property. And it was mutually agreed that we could make this work They were willing to wait for us. We were willing to wait for them. And it all just kind of came to be. It really is a beautiful story. So, you know, actually the owner had done several real estate transactions, and he said, I wish they were all like this. And it was just a pleasant experience. So that brings me to part 4. Now you have identified your dream, your truth. You have pursued your truth. You've taken action on your truth. And now you've got to do it. You've got to actually do something. Now, because of our hesitation in the past, really my hesitation, this time we knew that if we're serious about this, we've got to act on it. And I also went down deep inside again, way back to when I was being honest with myself. There was one part that I wasn't being honest about, and this came to me really right at the end when we had decided we're going to do this. We're going to make this happen. We're going to sell our home, which fortunately had been improved through the years. So it was a beautiful, beautiful home. We knew that was going to be a pretty easy sale. At least we hoped it would be. And we knew that it would afford us the opportunity to pay for this because we had practically paid down our mortgage there. So in our mind, we're like, all right, we think we're going to get X number of dollars for the modern ranch house, and we're going to buy the farm, and the farm is less than what we're going to sell the house for, so we should be able to pay off the house and have the farm with no mortgage. And that was a beautiful goal for us. But there was a part that I wasn't honest with myself about. When we finally got to the point where we said we're going to list the house, I woke up with nightmares saying, you can't do this. You can't sell the family home. That's crazy. You can't do that. It's been in the family. The land has been in the family for 100 years. You kids all grew up here. You can't do this. But then another voice said very clearly, then why did you ask? Why did you ask for this? As they say, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. Why did you do all this work if you really don't want it? And that brought me a kind of a sense of peace, saying, all right, why did I ask for this? You know you want it. You know you can't have it all. So that sort of lifted the burden for me, as well as the fact that my siblings, my family were all extremely supportive, saying, follow your dreams, man. Don't worry about that house. It's just wood and concrete, and yeah, there's memories there, but follow your dreams. I have an amazing family. So that's what got us to this part. And I get that it's difficult. You know, the financial part is probably the hardest part for most of us. For us, it worked out. For you, maybe you can start earlier in your life than us. If you can save some money, put money aside. Even if you don't have that dream right in front of you, know that you're going to have a dream, and you can start to set money aside. I get that that's hard. We struggled for so many years. We truly didn't have nickels to rub together. So saving was just out of the question. But timing, it all kind of worked out. All right, so let's recap. I'm not one who really likes to talk about giving advice, but I really wanted to share this with you because we're so happy with how things worked out, and we're so happy that we continue to follow through to get to this point. And hopefully you'll be able to pursue your dreams as well. So first step is to be honest with yourself. Very difficult part, I understand, but you need to find a quiet place and really dig deep inside and think about what it is that you really want. Ask yourself, what do I really want? And you need to be in a quiet place. Call it prayer, call it meditation, whatever works for you. But you need to be honest with yourself. And again, that's across the board, not just when it comes to buying a piece of property or something. Be honest with yourself. And then once you've been honest with yourself, you know what your dream is, you know what you want to do, where you want to be, pursue it. The second part is to pursue that truth, because it's nice to know what you want, but if you don't pursue it, nothing happens. So start thinking about it more, thinking about what it would take to reach that goal. And then the third part is to actually take action, to actually start doing things to reach that dream. And I think about life this way, that I always thought about life as if you're walking down this big hallway and there are doors on each side of the hallway, and you're You're looking for something. You're pursuing your truth, and you're just saying, you know what, I'm just looking for an open door. Like, that's all I need is an open door. Well, the action part is you need to do your part. You need to, as you're walking down that hallway, you need to jiggle the handles of all these doors. And you might find 99 of those doors are locked, but you might find one that's open. You need to open that door. And then the next part of that is you need to step in, and this is the fourth part of just doing it. You need to commit. You need to step into that open door, and it might be scary. It might be not exactly what you envisioned, but you'll see your dream in that room. You need to commit and step into that room. So that's my talk for today. Again, I don't want to come off as some kind of expert, because I know that all these things are difficult and everybody's life is different, but this is how we got here, and I think that some of these things can apply to you and help you as well. And no matter how old you are, how young you are, I just think it's important to recognize your dream and to pursue it. So thanks for being here today. I really do appreciate it. As I say, if you like this video, if you click that thumbs up or the like button, I really appreciate it. And if you like outdoor content, sort of rural lifestyle, homesteading stuff, I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel or follow on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Meanwhile, thanks for being here. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next time.